your email.
Good evening and welcome to this June 12, 2023 meeting of the Village of Lake Bluff Board of Trustees. Clerk, please call the roll, please.
Member Cole? Trustee Cole?
I'm sorry. Here.
Trustee Fisher?
Here.
Trustee Freed?
Here.
Trustee Catch?
Here.
And Trustee Rappin?
Here. Thank you. Please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please join me in a moment of silence as we remember the life and untimely passing of Zach Porter, the 20-year-old son of Village Board trustee Susan Ryder and Todd Porter. Zach lost his life in Alaska on Sunday, May 21st. Zach brought joy, laughter, and kindness to our lives, and his presence touched many in this community deeply. I have witnessed that. We remember his infectious smile, his compassionate nature, and the way he brightened any room he entered. I think all we can do as a community and friends is to continue to help and support Susan and Todd and their daughter, Sarah and Elizabeth, as they try to process this tragedy. Let's please have a moment of silence. Thank you. We offer all our deepest condolences and do whatever we can for the Board of Trustee member, Susan Ryder and her family. Thank you. Also, I would like to ask for another moment of silence to honor another member of the Lake Bluff family. Police officer Jeff Jacoby died in a police accident on Tuesday, June 6, doing what he loved very much, fishing in Wisconsin. Jeff was a 30-year-old law enforcement, having retired as a commander from the village of Des Plaines, that joined Lake Bluff in December 2020. In his short time, Jeff made an impact on the department and was very well liked amongst all that worked with him. He received a letter of appreciation by the village and others for his fine work and elevation of our department. And he did all these things with his special wit and sense of humor. And to me as a person, as an elected official in this community, I had the chance to have a ride along with a couple of police officers in the village, and Jeff was one of them. So I discovered basically the police department through his eyes. It's very sad. Let's please have a moment of silence. Thank you. Next is, as an award and proclamation, a proclamation designating June 2023 LGBT Pride Month. Whereas, the battle for dignity, equality, and personal safety for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning people is reflected in the tireless commitment of the LGBTQ community, as well as dedicated advocates and allies who strive to forge a more inclusive society. And whereas President Bill Clinton on June 2nd, 2000 declared June Gay and Lesbian Pride Month to commemorate the June 1969 Stonewall Uprising in Lower Manhattan, and on June 1st, 2009, President Barack Obama expanded the commemoration further by declaring June to be lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Pride Month. And whereas LGBTQ Americans, including those who live in our local communities, face hate and discrimination simply for being who they are and for who they love, and there remains much work to do to extend the promise of our country to every person. And whereas the landmark Supreme Court decision of 2015 guaranteeing marriage equality in all 50 states was a historic victory for LGBTQ Americans and continues to affirm our belief that we're all more free when we're treated as equals. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Régis Charlot, village president of the village of Lake Bluff, Illinois, do hereby proclaim June 2023 LGBTQ Pride Month in the village of Lake Bluff, and call upon the people of Lake Bluff to wholeheartedly recognize the importance of LGBTQ to our village and nation, and the progress we have made in ensuring equal treatment for all people. Thank you. Our next item is item 4, that is the consideration of the minutes of May 8th, 2023.
Are you going to mention that letter now? Or are you
Oh, yes.
I can if you want.
Can you do what?
Yeah, so I emailed out earlier today on the proclamation subject. I emailed out to the board an email that I received and was asked to pass on to you all regarding the idea of the village perhaps flying the pride flag in the community somewhere in a prominent location. And I did have a conversation with President Charlot about that, and the conversation was, let's bring it to a committee of the whole. The next committee of the whole have a conversation about it and maybe look at a policy. There's a lot of communities that have done so and adopted policies for flying flags, a variety of flags at different locations in town. And so that was the plan of action. And if there was no objection, that was what we were going to present today.
Absolutely. Next meeting, 2 weeks from now, committee of the whole, discussing the type of celebration we could do in the village. We have to be inclusive. And so it would be a fun conversation.
I'm sure we'll expand on it at our committee of the whole meeting, but I'm curious about timing. Would we be able to honor and celebrate this year, or are we looking just for the future years?
We're looking for the future. I think it's going to be too late. The next meeting would be on 6/26. It would be a little bit too short to procure flags, for example. I think the idea also is by celebrating this event, we probably will have also to consider other events as well. And so the whole conversation will be on this subject.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So thank you. And I'm sorry about, I was a little bit distracted. Next is item 4. The consideration of the minutes of the May 8th, 2023 regular village board meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. A second.
Second.
Are there any changes? Thank you. It is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passes. Thank you very much. Next is our non-agenda items and visitors. The village president and board of trustees allocate 15 minutes during this item for those individuals who would like the opportunity to address the village board of trustees on any matter not listed on this agenda. Each person addressing the village board of trustees is asked to limit their comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. It doesn't seem like we have anybody in this room willing to address the board. Do we have anybody online?
There's a handful of people attending virtually. If you have an issue you'd like to bring forward that's not on tonight's agenda, please do so by raising your hand. You'll be recognized. No.
Moving forward, therefore, next item is our item 6. The village board sets the order of a meeting. The village president and board of trustees will entertain requests from anyone present on the order of business to be conducted during the village board meeting. And I understand that item 13 and 14 will be considered first. Are there any objections? Thank you. So moving forward to 13. Item 13 is an ordinance granting a variation from the village's floor area ratio and impervious surface coverage restrictions at 525 East Center Avenue. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. On February 10th, 2023, the village of Lake Bluff received a zoning variation application from Tim Nofke and Kathy Srebalius jointly the applicants for zoning relief necessary to construct a shed in the rear yard of the single-family residence located at 525 East Center Avenue. 525 East Center Avenue is a local historical landmark. On May 8th, 2023, the HPC conducted and terminated an advisory review of a proposed shed having no concerns or issues with the proposed work. In response to the property owner's letters that went out for the PCZBA public hearing, an anonymous letter was received from a resident within 300 feet of a subject property whom opposes the request. On April 19, 2023, the applicant presented their plans to the PCZBA, whom continued the public hearing after expressing a number of concerns and suggested changes, including lowering the shed height, reducing impervious surfaces if possible, adding a swell, and providing information on the trees that will replace the existing one. The applicants resubmitted plans that addressed the PCZBA concerns. The size of a shed decreased from 176 square feet to 154 square feet, and the height of a shed decreased from 14 to 12 feet, 1 inch. The applicant also hired Black Engineering to address drainage concerns and produced a plan showing 5 arborvitae to replace the existing trees. On May 17, 2023, the PCZBA unanimously voted to forward a favorable recommendation to the village board on this request, subject to the condition that the 5 arborvitae are similar shown on the revised site plan to the east and south of a proposed shed be at least 6 inches in height, 6 feet in height, at least as tall as the existing fence. Are there questions on the board? And understand that Tim is here to answer questions. Would you like to address the board, if you want to?
His architect is here. Is there any technical questions? Yeah.
As well as be with the architect.
Yeah. First reading.
It's first reading, it's a roll call.
Voice
Yeah.
vote.
Voice vote, okay. If there are no questions on this board, I will call a roll call, a voice vote.
I just want to say that I spoke to Drew. I'd like to go out and visit the house and just take a look at the property and get a visual idea. And Drew mentioned that
Spoke with the owner and they're certainly open to doing that.
that would be great. Thank you.
We can certainly arrange that for a second reading in the next 2 weeks
So-
here. If anybody else
Drew-
would like to join along.
Yeah, you and I didn't have a chance to catch up today, but it sounds like the architect and the owner addressed everything that the PCZBA asked them to, that our PCZBA voted 6-0 in support of this. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay.
And just for the one property owner that was within the notice area that had raised a concern flag, that was really more a general concern about additional impervious surface in the community, as not opposed to this project. It wasn't directed at the project per se, so.
Has there been has there been any follow-up from that person? Okay.
And all concerns were resolved by PCCPA, I read. If I don't hear any more comments, it is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passes. Thank you very much. Next is item 14, an ordinance amending Title 3 of the Village of Lake Bluff Municipal Code, and no, it is not that.
It's the BYOB.
It is.
Which number is this, Regis?
14.
14. Or,
I have it if you need it. Here.
No, I have it. So an ordinance, item 14 is an ordinance amending Title 3 of the Village of Lake Bluff Municipal Code and the comprehensive fee schedule to allow BYOB liquor service at Half and Half Pizza Company located at 77 East Scranton Avenue. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
so moved.
Second.
Thank you. Half and Half Pizza Company located at 77 East Scranton is currently undergoing a renovation to expand its dining room pursuant to Ordinance 2023-13, and owner-operator John Desrosiers is now seeking the ability to allow BYOB consumption on premises of a restaurant. The Illinois Municipal Code grants all home rule and non-home rule municipalities the authority to license and regulate BYOB establishments as a public accommodation for establishments that are not licensed under the Liquor Control Act of 1934. Public accommodation means a refreshment, entertainment, or recreation facility of any kind, whether licensed or not, whose goods, services, facilities, privileges, or advantages are extended, offered, sold, or otherwise made available to the public. A survey of North Shore communities reveals that there is a great variety of how communities have chosen to manage BYOB establishments. As you may recall, Mr. Desrosiers has operated numerous establishments in the village while holding a variety of liquor licenses without issue during the past several years. As drafted, the proposed regulations provide certain limitation to hours of operation, prohibit customers from leaving the restaurant with open containers of alcohol, and prohibit restaurant staff from serving alcohol to customers. Monsieur Desrosiers' attached letter addresses his plans in regards to staff training and service offerings. The Liquor Commissioner has reviewed this request and recommends approval of the creation and issuance of a new BYOB license to Half and Half Pizza Company. Mr. Desrosiers will be present at the meeting on Monday evening to answer questions. And we have John here today. Do we have questions on the board? Or John, do you have a statement to make?
Nope, the idea, we figured that there's plenty of places to buy alcohol around town. Obviously, we have our own retail shop, but also people can buy it at Prairie, right next door to us, and just walk in, sit down, have some pizza. We're designing and trying to make Half and Half into a really community-focused, centric place, and make it accessible for everybody to come to. If you can, bring a six-pack of beer for your friends, or just grab a bottle of wine and come in to eat, it's a little more affordable than just paying normal restaurant prices, so we think it's attractive. And also, it's a small place. We didn't really think that we needed to go through the whole process of getting a full license. So really, that's the basic idea, is just make it a little more accessible for everyone.
Thank you. I think the fact that you're opening a casual pizza restaurant dedicated to that type of restaurant is great. Many of us have discussed over the last 20 years the need to have a casual Italian restaurant, for example, or any type of restaurant but would be of that format. So I'm actually grateful to you on that. Thank you.
John, can you tell me a little bit about the layout of the restaurant? And I guess I have a two-part question. What changes might be happening within the restaurant? And then how will you monitor, control people who want to sit outside?
We've got about 20 seats outside, and we'll have 48 seats inside. Most of the restaurant's mostly done right now. We've torn apart all the walls and floors and kind of remodeled everything, so you can see what it looks like now by looking in the windows. We're not, all of the staff that works at our normal restaurants are all Bassett certified. They've got a number of different certifications to serve alcohol and judge whether people can or can't drink. That's not specifically required under Illinois law or by the village, but we are going to require our staff to have it anyway. We will still do things like ID checks to make sure that people are not underage drinking at the restaurant. And then we'll provide the accoutrement for everyone to serve themselves. You know, we'll have openers and glasses and things like that. But, you know, we're not going to be the ones who are physically opening it. That'll be up to the guests to do that part. So we're still going to keep a watchful eye on everything and be, you know, responsible stewards of the people in our side of our restaurant like we normally do.
Mr. DeRose, have you had a restaurant before that's been BYOB? I know you've had a number of establishments.
No, we've never had one. It's the first.
Drew, are you aware of any restaurants in Lake Bluff? Do we have a history of safety and control?
The answer is, across the village, we haven't had issues. And my personal experience working in towns which have had BYOBs, there's generally less alcohol consumed at those restaurants.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Great affordable BYOB is very in keeping with Lake Bluff. So
Yeah, we don't expect people to drink anywhere near as much as they do at some of the other places. Mostly because, you know, our service staff is well-trained and very attentive, and our goal is to make sure people are very happy all the time. So generally they do that a little bit less. We will have customers that'll bring in bottles of wine and they won't finish them. We'll still have the seal-up bags, so you can take the rest of it home.
Trustee Fisher, this is from the ordinance approval showing the layout.
Thanks.
So it's a pretty straightforward layout. The kitchen's in the same place that it was before. One of the exemptions that we had to get from the state was the use of the restrooms on the second floor. They're actually almost directly above the restaurant via an elevator. That took us about a year to get the state to approve it, of constant haggling them between myself and Ron. Actually, Ron Osterline finally got through and got it done. We got a hold of one guy, and one guy said, yeah, that looks great, and just signed off on it. A year of it just sitting on somebody's desk. So the restaurant is laid out just like that right now, or almost like that. And that's about the way it'll flow. So it is going to be full service, so we'll have, you know, servers and bussers and things like that. Plus, we'll keep doing all the normal carry-out and delivery like we do now.
just curious, pizza only or is there pizza plus?
It's pizza. I've got 5 salads on the menu. I just expanded it. We put about 14 apps, so there's a whole bunch of new appetizers, and there's going to be a dessert menu as well. So pizza, apps, desserts, lots of snacky stuff. So not a huge menu, but everything well done. Definitely more than half and half as now. We've reworked the way our kitchen works, so.
Thank you. Mary, Chanel? Good.
No questions. I spoke to Drew earlier, and I think we're good.
John, do you foresee maybe shifting gears and eventually seeking an alcohol license?
Only if there was some unexpected demand from customers. I don't think so, honestly. It's really going to be a family-driven place. You know, most people are not going out just to go nuts drinking. And there really are lots of options within 50 feet of the place. I just don't think it's needed at this particular location. I don't see something like that happening. I'll never say never, for sure. not with everything we've gone through the last 4 years, but I don't expect something like that to happen. I think it's going to be really attractive for people to bring in their own stuff. So, I mean, you can get, a can of beer for $3 at a JDR and just come down and have a pizza, have a couple beers, and go home. That's pretty attractive.
Cool. Kat, any comments? Steve?
No, it just amazes me, when I first moved here, there was nowhere where you could get an alcoholic beverage in town, and now there's at least 6. It's a more vibrant location. So.
Yeah, me too. There wasn't a liquor license operating in town when we started in Avazi almost 15 years ago.
I do not see any more questions on the board. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. The motion carries.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Resuming the normal order of business, our next item is item 7A, that is the warrants report for May 9th to June 12th, 2023, and April 2023 payroll expenditures. Is there a motion to approve the report?
So moved.
Thank you.
Need a second?
Second.
As a summary of background and reason for request, we have expenditures of village funds for payment of invoices in the amount of $436,820.57 for May 9th to May 22nd, 2023, and $557,140 for May 23rd to June 12, 2023. And we have expenditure of village funds for payments of payroll in the amount of $293,827.13 for April 2023, for a total expenditures of $1,287,787.70. Do we have any questions on the board on this report? Without any question, this is a roll call. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Cole?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Freed?
Aye.
Trustee Hatch?
Aye.
And Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
Thank you. Mary, I thought you had a question, that's why, sorry.
Yes, okay.
Next is our April 2023 finance report. Bettina, would you mind?
Sure. Good evening. Monthly sales tax revenue on a cash basis for April fiscal year '23 was $290,939, which is about $8,078 or 2.9% greater than the FY '22 cash basis receipts. Overall sales tax revenue on a cash basis totals $3.7 million, which is $166,000 less than FY '22. Calendar year-to-date comparisons reflect a 5.77% increase in tax revenue compared to calendar year '22. Building permit revenue for fiscal year '23 to date is April to date was $686,400 or $374,197 greater than the same reporting period for last fiscal year. General fund fiscal year '23 total revenues of $13,260,148 are $625,758 greater than the fiscal year '22 year-to-date revenues, and fiscal year '23 current expenditures are consistent with or less than budgeted for the total general fund. The fiscal year-to-date expenditures of $11,804,473 were $229,647 less than the expenditures for the same period in FY '22. So there's still some year-end accounts payable payments that were made through the current warrant, and they'll be added to the FY '23 totals as April invoices are paid.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions?
I wanted to ask the crystal ball, the sales tax that's done, everything looks like it's in really good order. The sales tax would be the one blip, and it just seems like maybe that's been the past couple of months. What does your crystal ball tell you about the trend? Any sense?
Depends what day you're reading the newspaper, right?
Okay.
I mean, it truly does. I feel that, I think historically, we're looking at the same trend, probably riding the same wave. I think that we're not gonna see big declines, but not big leaps and bounds either.
Yeah, and for us, it's
And
primarily auto and
Automotive
gas.
is automotive, really, not
Yeah,
gas,
okay.
just automotive. So, Drew, you have a comment? No?
Yeah, we try to monitor
Yeah.
that sector closely.
Yeah.
And so far, it's
We've been,
surprising they say it's going to bounce strong.
right,
And that there's been some pent-up demand and interest rates, if they do come down a little bit, but there's people need to get cars now, right? And they've been holding on to longer than, it's just like we saw post '08 recession, right? People have been holding on to things normally. They would have already gotten rid of it, but they're gonna need to buy, and that there's the chips is getting caught up. And now we're just in this transition between EV and internal combustion engines and how that's gonna play out over the next 10 years. So it's very interesting. So, but so far in the near term, they're saying, at least the financial advisors that I'm reading are saying it should be good.
Right.
Which is, again, it's been an amazing run. I mean, despite everything, the numbers keep, sales tax keeps performing extremely well.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? It is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you very much for
I
motion.
don't know if I had a motion in a
don't have a
second.
motion.
Yeah, so you need a motion to accept the report.
So is there a motion to accept the report?
Motion to accept the report.
Thank you. A second.
Second.
Thank you. So this time, this is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. Next is item 7C, the Treasurer's Annual Police Pension Fund Report. Again, Bettina, would you mind leading us into this report?
Sure. So included in the packet was attached the year-ending fiscal report for April 30th, 2023, which is an annual report that's required by state statute from the Police Pension Board Treasurer to the Village Board, of which I'm serving in both capacities. So it briefly, just from an overview perspective, noteworthy, the funding ratio, which is something that everyone's always looking at, the funding ratio was 54.08%. Which still, based on current tracking for 2040 projections, we're required to be at 90%. There is some talk and some speculation in House bill legislation that will get extended to 2050, which would, re-amortize all the payments and change what the actuaries would calculate as minimum payments. So less than a year ago, also of note is all the investment dollars were consolidated by the Illinois State Police Pension Fund, and those dollars now sit with them. It's supposed to be giving us greater economies of scale. One would hope that we perhaps saw less of a decline. Not sure. It's hard to say. Unfortunately, a lot of their investment material is provided in arrears and lacks allocation data currently. They're looking to improve that, so it's difficult to say exactly what it's invested in per entity. You can see it as a whole, but not per entity like we used to get some pretty detailed information. So does anyone have any questions on what was in?
I'm just curious how our funding ratio compares to other communities. Are we doing good? Are we?
There's certainly some local communities in the area that are doing better. I think that's because a lot of those communities took a different perspective on their funding years ago. So either overfunded or had a rolling amortization period, which created a 10-year window, and they continue to contribute at a higher rate, and that has boosted, what occurred. And then we also suffered declines in the investment returns the last couple years. The last year we had growth, and then the next year, this year, declined. So that's all contributing. So I'd say we're probably mid-range.
And one of the bigger issues, I think, impacting us is just our census. We're so small.
Right.
Right? That's the tough part for us.
Right. Although recently we do see a swing. There'll be more tier 2 than tier 1, so that's supposed to offset some things, but some legislation has pulled back the tier 2 rules, if you will, and made them more similar to tier 1. So there'll be changes. It's hard to say.
So one question I had for you about 2 years ago was that the level of investment we're making into that fund was following recommendations from financial advisors. And so we basically got caught with investments that didn't yield as much as they should. So how can we not so much recover from that, but basically achieve a better position? What should we change?
Right, so the only thing that you can really change is the criteria that's being used for the evaluation to increase your contribution. So you could look at changing the interest rate of return that's being used to calculate it. You can, that's probably the primary way to do it. We're sitting at 7.5%, so you'd want to lower it. And that would increase the contribution if we lowered the rate of return. Obviously, the last couple of years, no one has seen that rate of return, so that would be a discussion. And we talked about that prior to consolidation, but wanted to see what consolidation would do as far as smoothing out the ebbs and flows of the investment returns. And unfortunately, I think last year wasn't a good example of what could happen.
I mean, we were also setting expectations to have our funds at a certain level, percentage-wise, to what we're liable for. So are we changing our assumption expectation to a higher level, or are we still there?
So the assumptions do actuarially change a little bit every year without the pension board necessarily making those recommendations. So they change mortality tables, which affect the contribution calculations. They change payroll percentage of payroll calculations. So there have been tweaks, and the pension contribution has increased with a similar pool of people. So, you know, we've gone from like 900,000 to over 1 million in contribution. But other than that, no, they haven't made specific changes to assumptions voluntarily, like the interest rate.
Which would negatively impact our ratio immediately, right?
If we change the interest
Yeah,
rate, it would increase the contribution.
But it would impact our ratio, right? The idea that we can't, the villages, modifying some of those assumptions would negatively impact our ratio, but they would impact, long-term, they would get us to the goal in a, in a
Right.
more, maybe.
Well, long-term, you'd be growing the investments, at least that would be the intent of it, assuming that investments had a good year.
Yeah.
You know, you'd still see those ebbs and flows, but they'd smooth out, and that would increase the percentage and grow it faster.
Yeah, and I think the thing that it's been said more than once by actuarials who have been advising the village is that, you know, the idea of should the village increase, you know, hey, maybe we had a good year, should we take the surplus and throw that in the police pension fund? They've always said, don't do that, right? Because you could have a bad year in the stock market, and, you know, but that's why it's a slow, steady race, you know?
Right.
So don't overinvest, because that may not be in your best, may not yield what you're looking for.
Right.
And that was the answer you guys gave 2 years ago when I asked the same question.
Right,
Yeah.
and there are always changes to how the state calculates that funding ratio and what numbers they look at. So it's a moving target to a certain degree. You have to look at the fluidity and the ability of the fund to make the payments as more of a marker, which some people would argue is a better marker for the health of the fund. And from that perspective, we're doing great.
But this pooling that's taking place statewide now, it's still shaking out. I mean, in terms
It is. I mean, the police pension side of it is still in flux. They're still creating rules, policies, access issues. It's not as robust as the fire side of it. So, you know, we're still looking for information. And not all of the funds have voluntarily turned over their assets. So that's also another issue.
Thank you.
Sure.
Are there any questions on the board? It is again, I did not ask for a motion for this item. Could I please have a motion to accept the police pension fund report?
Motion to accept the report.
What's that?
She made the
To
motion.
accept the report.
I'll second it.
Thank you very much.
Voice vote.
It is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. The motion carries. Next item is our village administrator's report. Mr. Irvin?
Sure thing. I have two things tonight. The first is, it started last Friday, and it's probably the hottest start we've ever had. I think Claire's going to give you guys an update on what's happening with the farmer's market. But yeah, in 15 years, I've never seen a first Friday farmer's market
Lot of
that
cars.
busy. It was very busy. So
Yeah,
Claire's immediate influence.
so as Drew mentioned, the first farmer's market opened last Friday, and there's great turnout. And it will continue through October 13th The hours are 7 a.m. to noon, and it takes place, of course, on the Village Green. The farmers market was established in 1993, making this year its 30th year. The Lake Bluff Farmers Market has also been recognized as one of the best in the Chicagoland by major media. The goal of the market is to cultivate connection between Lake Bluff residents and to bolster economic vitality in our downtown. This year's artwork for the market was produced by Beth McKenna and Philip Ross. You may have seen the posters up around downtown and also on social media. And we'd like to thank the Lake Forest Bank and Trust for sponsoring the market's 30th year. Every year, the Farmers Market Committee aims to provide a wide variety of produce, baked goods, and flowers. At this time, the farmers market has accepted 29 vendors, a list of which were provided in your packet and are available on the village's website as well. 26 vendors are returning from the 2022 season or from previous years, and the committee has accepted a few new vendors, including Deep River Roasters, who sell bagged, ground, and whole bean coffee, From the Flower Field, which sells locally grown fresh cut flowers, and Merrick's Polish Foods, which sell pierogies, Polish sausage, stuffed cabbage rolls, and balsamic vinegars. The market also hosts a number of activities to provide fun and entertainment for market goers, and the 2023 schedule includes musical entertainment at every market. RC juggles balloon art and bubbles at various markets throughout the season. And then also Lake Bluff Library provides story time, and then the corn roast will happen on August 11th this year. And we'd like to thank and recognize the work that those who have contributed to the success of the market's 30th season have provided. The Farmers Market Committee, which includes Chair Frank Pony Swanton, Daria Andrews, Sean Bjork, Adrian Fawcett, Lise Martin, Sarah Raymore Winek, and Kathy Shepard, and our market manager, Kathleen Gridley Swanton, and of course, our customers. So that is the report. Thank you.
What do you attribute the turnout for this past Friday?
That is a good question. I think the beautiful weather, the fact that it kind of started at a perfect time when school was closed, camps haven't ended yet. We've also been trying out some changes with social media and just posting more, so my guess is a combination of all of those things.
So that's just informational. If there's any other questions, if there's not, that's great. I'll move on to the next topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just try to keep pace with that hot start, right?
Yeah, great. Good update.
The next item, the Lake Bluff School District 65 is doing a number of improvements this summer, and they've submitted fee waiver requests for the board's consideration. Exceeds the village administrator's authority, so I bring these to you all tonight. Permit fees for these three projects would be a little over $1,500, close to $3,000, and then close to $10,000 for the three. So about $15,000 all in. And the board has approved similar requests in the past, but procedurally it goes in front of you. So if you're acceptable to this request, you can simply do so by motion and a voice vote.
Roll call vote.
A roll call vote. Thank you, Peter.
They meet all the criteria. It seems pretty straightforward.
Sounded like a motion to me.
So should we put
Motion.
a motion?
So moved.
So moved, a second to this motion?
Second.
It's a roll call. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Freed?
Aye.
Trustee Hatch?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
And Trustee Cole?
Aye.
Thank you.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Next is our village attorney's report. Mr.
No report,
Freeman.
no report tonight.
Thank you. Next would be my report. First is I have asked Village Board Trustee Steve Rappin to be our Village Board liaison to the Joint Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeal for affordable housing concerns.
And the comp plan update, the comprehensive land use plan update.
Yes. I would say that Steve is passionate about affordable housing. His professional activity includes affordable housing concerns in Chicagoland, outside of Lake Bluff, I should say, to be very specific. We all feel, because I've talked to all of you, that his expertise is greatly appreciated on this board, and you're very, very articulate about it. And we all feel grateful to your contribution for this item of work. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your confidence.
Next on my report is, as a follow-up to our gas leaf blower ordinance, the village has received a request from a resident to requesting an exemption for large lots, in this case 22 acres. So maybe an exemption for lots above 20 acres, for example, and that would match, for example, the golf course and the village, the school's large play area, for example. Unless I hear an objection, I would plan to ask the Sustainability and Environment Committee to review this request for exemption, so similar to the schoolyards and golf course, for recommendation following existing process, unless I hear an objection on this board. And I see no objection on this board. So thank you very much. So we'll forward that request to SEC to look at it following the process they have used to consider the gas leaf blower regulation. So thank you very much. And that would be it for my report. Next is item 11, acceptance of a correspondence. Please all note that all correspondence was delivered to the Village Board of Trustees in the informational report on May 5, 12, 1926 and June 2nd, 2023. Is there a motion to accept the correspondence?
Motion to accept.
Thank you. A second.
Second.
Are there any questions on the correspondence? So this is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Next is item number 12, an ordinance amending Title I of the Municipal Code of the Village of Lake Bluff regarding the comprehensive fee schedule. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. At the April 24th, 2023 Village Board meeting, Title 8 of the Lake Bluff Municipal Code was amended to impose a stormwater utility fee. In order to implement the new utility as directed, the annual fee schedule ordinance requires the following updates. Number one, a stormwater utility fee rate of $195 per equivalent runoff unit. Number two is stormwater management incentives for rain gardens of $250, for runoff rate reduction for $250, for runoff volume reductions $250, for runoff water quality $250, and for rain barrels for $25. The maximum lifetime incentive amount available per property for the combination of rain gardens, rate reduction, volume reduction, and water quality items is $1,000. Once a property reaches $1,000 in incentive payments for these items, no more incentive will be issued to the property regardless of the ownership. Rain barrels are not subject to any maximum lifetime incentive amount. Please note that since the Village Board approved first reading of this ordinance at its May 8th, 2023 meeting, Village staff has added an additional fee for board consideration, a new $500 application fee for the fire sprinkler mandate exemption process adopted at the same meeting. Staff recommends approving the attached ordinance to amend the fee schedule.
But for not that addition, it would have been on a consent agenda, so.
Any questions or any concerns? And again, this is an exemption to a much more onerous process that would be through PCZBS.
Okay.
So it's to the benefit of the residents on that.
I guess I forgot to ask you this,
Okay.
but, and I just want clarification. Did we always, was this already on the radar of putting the sprinkler exemption application fee under this?
All fees are under the
Yeah.
comprehensive fee schedule, yes. And that fee is less than the zoning fee, but more than some of these other smaller fees. But it was just the idea of creating some sort of, I would say, some sort of a hurdle for somebody to make sure their application is, they're gonna invest the time and energy in it, at the
Yeah.
same time recognizing that, staff's gonna be involved in reviewing it, but not making it so onerous that it would scare people off. So trying to strike that balance.
I mean, I feel like a broken record. I think I've said it already, but I think, a great deal of thought went into this, and it's reflected here, and I'm excited about it, so looking forward to supporting it.
Thank you.
Great.
Steve, Kat,
No.
Gary, Jenna? No questions.
It's roll call.
It is a roll call. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Freed.
Aye.
Trustee Hatch.
Aye.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Trustee Cole.
Aye.
And Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Thank you. Next item would be item 15, a resolution approving the waiver of competitive bids and an agreement between the Village of Lake Bluff and Bridge Brothers, Inc. for the replacement of a Glen Avenue footbridge. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance? These resolutions?
Motion to approve this resolution.
Second.
Thank you. Little over a year ago, the village board approved an agreement between the Village of Lake Bluff and the National Philanthropic Trust to accept an anonymous donation in the sum of $400,000 for the replacement of the existing Glen Avenue pedestrian bridge. This generous gift from a resident put the village on track to replace the bridge slightly earlier than originally programmed, which is fortunate given how the current bridge continues to deteriorate. It kind of moves a lot. Over the last several months, several steps have been taken to further replacement. Number one, a preliminary emplacement and design work based on Bob Hunter's, chairman of the Village Architectural Board of Review, concept plan for the new bridge and was completed last summer. Number two, Bridge Brothers, Inc. was hired by the village board in October 2022 to design the new bridge, as this approach was identified as the most efficient and cost-effective way to procure a quasi-custom bridge by contracting with a company that manufactures bridges off-site and having it delivered and installed to the project location. And number three, a landscape plans for the bridge approaches, which, along with the final bridge design, were reviewed and recommended for board approval by the ABR in May 2023. The step before the village board now is consideration of the attached Bridge Brothers, Inc. proposal to complete the engineering and then furnish and install the bridge for a price of $325,984. The removal of the existing bridge, required site work to accommodate the new bridge, and the landscape enhancement bring the estimated total cost of about $600,000. If approved as presented, it is estimated to take 20 weeks to deliver, construct and set the replacement bridge fall of 2023. As noted back in October, there are adequate funds in the general fund to support the completion of this project this fiscal year. As a further savings to taxpayer, the anonymous donor has pledged an additional $6,000 to cover the cost tied to the Ipe wood decking and trim pieces as designed, which will decrease future village maintenance costs. Village staff recommends that the village board waive the competitive bidding process and enter into an agreement with Bridge Brothers, Inc. in the amount of $325,984 to supply and install the bridge.
I wanted to ask, obviously the anonymous donor, it's incredibly generous what they're doing, and this is really needed for the community. Drew, can you remind me, was there always an excess $200,000 that the village was picking up over and above what the anonymous donor?
In the village's multi-year plan, it was actually closer to $300,000, and that number had not been updated. It was a few years in the out years. It's probably, I think, 3 years out. We'd originally talked about it, but the village was always going to cover at least that much, and we talked about if we've done some investigation, if the village was going to, this bridge that's in front of you this evening we would say it's kind of a slightly bespoke bridge. It's not off the shelf per se, but there are off the shelf bridges that you can purchase. But if the village was doing all that, at the end of the day, the village would only be saving from what this total plan is, $150,000. I mean, it's still very expensive, and but we have the fortune of I started to show some of the earlier images of Bob Hunter's concept plans that came to this final project and product. But yeah, the village was going to be spending a significant amount of money regardless, with price of steel and so forth. And while this is, I would say it is rare for the village to not do competitive bidding. This is something the village went out and investigated this bridge builder, and they were doing a product type that was similar, very close to what we were trying to achieve in the ultimate design, and it made sense to go with this firm. There's 3 other elements to this project for really the other half of the budget that will involve the earthwork of putting in the abutments and putting in sheet piling, which would have to be done regardless of the type of the bridge you would do, and then the final landscaping and the same with that. So that's those 2. You'll see those are the last couple contracts that you'll see to come through that it will be competitively bid, but that's the balance of the project. But certainly this generous gift has granted the village this bridge that the village probably would not have been able to find a way to afford without sacrificing from some another area. So,
Great.
Thank you. There also has been a lot of conversation with a direct neighborhood to this bridge. Are we in a good position at this point?
absolutely. And the drawing here shows most of the hand-wringing that took place about this project dealt with one of the early concept drawings was the idea of creating, there's benches on the south side. There was also the idea of having it on the north side. I think that was with the neighborhoods because of the way that the road, the right-of-way is so large there on Glen that the homes really are feet from the edge of the roadway, and they felt that was a little too close. So those got eliminated from the plan.
Thank you. Questions on
And I say, my favorite line I heard, I think, ever at a public meeting was, it was very Lake Bluffy. One of the residents who lives on the south side made a comment, said, "You're straightening out the bridge, because now it's running perfectly." You know, and he's like, "My wife and I bought this house because it was asymmetrical."
It's so late.
Right. But he said, "But I love it. I love everything." So he was great.
Good.
So
My favorite thing about this bridge is I usually go and walk my dog, and sometimes my wife comes with me, and she invariably goes first, and I'm behind jumping on the bridge. She hates that. So it is a roll call. If there are not any more questions.
Do we have a motion?
you have a motion and a second. I'll make sure there's
Did
no.
I second it? I probably
You did.
There you go.
This does require a supermajority vote of the board since we're waiving competitive bids, which means 4 trustees.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Hatch.
Aye.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Trustee Cole.
Aye.
Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
And Trustee Freed.
Aye.
Thank you. Yeah, for the Great Bridge next.
So then the question, when will it arrive? So late fall is what we're hoping for, but like everything that's dependent upon others, we shall see. So,
Thanks, Jeff. Next is item 16, a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Interdev LLC for managed IT and security services. Could I please have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you. A second.
I second.
Thank you very much. For the past 8 years, the village has been part of an information technology consortium called GovITC, made up of 6 communities that joined forces to, 1, develop and share IT services, staffing and equipment, and 2, find efficiencies, reduce risk, and provide a collaborative environment for innovation and continuous improvement. While the consortium was successful in reducing certain expenses and elevating IT services and security, the lack of uniform operating environments and changing organizational expectation hampered GovITC success. At this time, the 2 largest members of GovITC are looking to dissolve the consortium to pursue different service arrangements to further their respective organizational goals, such as, just as GovIT service contract with InterDev concludes at the end of June. To ensure IT services for the village, a procurement process was initiated and proposals were solicited from the 3 IT firms that recently provided proposals to the consortium, since they were familiar with the village operating environment and service level standards. After analyzing the proposals, staff believes that the 3-year proposal submitted by InterDev LLC, the firm that has been the contractor for the consortium since day one, demonstrates, 1, their capability to meet or exceed requirements set forth in the scope of work. Number 2, how they can build on our existing relationship and address current and future needs and trends in the industry. We are speaking security here. And number 3, their affordability of services, $115,644 per year, with an annual escalator not to exceed 5% per year for the initial 3-year term, and under no circumstance 18% over the possible full 5-year engagement, was the most effective, cost-effective proposal. Village staff has been very satisfied with InterDev services to date and recommends approval of this agreement as presented. And I would like to add also that I've looked at the agreement, and for a small village, a small IT infrastructure as it is for the village, there's an awful lot that is presented to us that usually would be part of a much larger organization. So from my standpoint, having run data centers or built data centers, it's actually very good. Okay? Questions on the board?
So we had, until June, we're in a consortium. Starting in June, we're going to go out on our own with the company that did the work for the consortium. The number for the next year, for each of the next 3 years, is 115. What was the past year in the consortium?
About 90.
Okay, so by not being part of the consortium anymore, I mean, there's normal appreciation, but
Full disclosure, there was the provider in the final year came to the village because of the market. The IT markets were very difficult, and they came to us and they were trying to negotiate some increases just because they were struggling to replace people, and it was just a very difficult market. And the consortium did not agree to the changes. And, you're in agreement, and we're going to stick with the agreement. And interesting enough, I think most of the members will end up going right back with the same company. And we did our best to wag the dog because we were benefiting with the smaller communities. We benefited the most, and could not convince our brothers and sisters of these other communities to keep it going. But we still, one of the things it did do, it brought in a solid provider. InterDev is mostly in the southeast, but they're in Atlanta. I mean, they handle a lot of municipalities throughout the southeast, and now they have a market in the Midwest, and brought a better, more complex market. And as consumers, we benefited from that, and so it did help us in that regard. And there is still the opportunity. I think you'll see in the next 60 days probably another intergovernmental agreement with these same communities that we're going to look to continue, like to have like backup. Our backup is stored for disaster recovery in Kenilworth. That'll remain, and the ability for us to do joint procurement, we'll come back with that. But for now, we just need to have this in place to move forward. But yeah, an era has ended, but at the same time, I understand why, because at some point it just didn't benefit the bigger players. So
thanks, Drew.
Thank you. Are there any more questions on the board about this item? It is a roll call. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Trustee Cole.
Aye.
Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Trustee Freed.
Aye.
And Trustee Hatch.
Aye.
Thank you. Next item is item 17, our trustees' report. Do any trustees wish to make a report tonight?
No.
Thank you. Moving forward, and that would be item 18. I understand we have an executive session tonight,
Yes.
so I will be specific about that. May I have a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of discussing personnel pursuant to the Illinois Meeting Act, and that upon the adjournment of a closed session, this regular meeting will be deemed to automatically be adjourned by the same vote without the conduct of any further business. Can I please have a motion to go in session?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you.
roll call vote?
It is a roll call.
Trustee Cole.
Aye.
Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Trustee Freed.
Aye.
Trustee Hatch.
Aye.
And Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Thank you. So this concludes the open part of the Village Board meeting. Thank you to anyone in attendance, and have a great evening.
Recording stopped.